For years, Sarah believed financial freedom followed a simple formula. Pick a number, reach the number, become free. The idea seemed obvious. A larger savings account, a larger investment portfolio, a larger net worth. Somewhere beyond those milestones, freedom was waiting. At least that was the story she believed. And she wasn't alone. Millions of people carry the same assumption. Work harder, save more. Invest consistently, keep moving. Eventually you'll arrive. The destination may look different for everyone, but the belief is the same. Freedom exists somewhere ahead. The only challenge is reaching it. For a long time, Sarah found comfort in that idea because it made progress feel measurable. Every dollar saved meant one step closer. Every investment meant one step closer. Every milestone meant one step closer. The path seemed clear until she noticed something strange. People kept reaching goals they once considered life-changing. Yet many never felt free. Income increased, assets increased, net worth increased. Yet the feeling remained surprisingly familiar, still worrying, still planning, still chasing, still waiting for the moment everything would finally feel different. Sarah couldn't stop thinking about it, because these weren't people standing still. Many had achieved goals they once dreamed about, goals that had taken years to reach. Yet after reaching them, the feeling didn't last. The satisfaction faded, the target moved, and the chase continued. At first, Sarah assumed the answer was simple. Maybe they just needed a bigger number, more savings, more investments, more security. But the same pattern kept appearing, again and again and again. Different incomes, different lifestyles, different circumstances. Yet the same feeling remained, almost there. But not quite, that was the mystery. Because if freedom truly lived behind a number, why did bigger numbers fail to create the feeling people expected? For the first time, Sarah considered a possibility she had never seriously questioned. What if financial freedom isn't a destination? What if it isn't hiding behind a number at all? What if people are measuring freedom with the wrong ruler? That thought changed everything, because perhaps the problem wasn't a lack of progress. Perhaps progress and freedom were not the same thing. And if that were true, then the entire pursuit of financial freedom might need to be redefined. Because if freedom isn't a number, what exactly is it? And why does it feel further away than ever, even for people who seem closer than ever before? The question stayed with Sarah. If freedom isn't a number, why does it always seem just out of reach? At first, the answer seemed obvious. People simply hadn't reached their goal yet. They needed more savings, more investments, more security, more time. That explanation made sense. Until Sarah noticed something strange. The closer people got to their goals, the more those goals seemed to change. Someone wants to earn a certain income. They reach it. Then the number increases. Someone wants a certain investment balance. They reach it, then decide it isn't enough. The destination changes. The timeline changes. Yet freedom remains somewhere ahead. That pattern appeared everywhere. Not only in money, in careers, in success, in achievement. Human beings adapt remarkably fast. What once felt extraordinary eventually feels normal. What once felt like success becomes the baseline. Yesterday's dream becomes today's expectation. That was the hidden shift. Not because people are greedy, not because they are ungrateful, because adaptation is part of being human. The mind is designed to normalize improvement, and while that helps people grow, it creates an unexpected problem. Progress becomes difficult to feel, a larger income becomes routine, a better home becomes familiar, a growing portfolio becomes expected. The achievement remains, the emotional reward fades, and when the reward fades, people often assume progress has stopped, even when it hasn't. That realization changed the way Sarah viewed financial freedom, because for years she believed freedom was moving away. Now she wasn't so sure. Perhaps freedom wasn't moving, perhaps expectations were. That was the insight. The finish line wasn't fixed, it was evolving, quietly, constantly, almost invisibly. And every time expectations expanded, the feeling of freedom moved further into the future. Not in reality, in perception. That distinction changes everything. Because people who believe they are standing still behave differently than people who recognize they are progressing. One becomes discouraged, the other becomes patient. One focuses on what is missing, the other notices what has already changed. Sarah realized many people were closer to freedom than they believed, but they couldn't feel it because they were measuring themselves against a moving target. And perhaps that was the greatest illusion of all. Not that freedom was far away, but that enough kept changing faster than people realized. Because the moment a dream becomes normal, the mind immediately starts searching for the next one. The realization stayed with Sarah, because another question immediately followed. If people are making progress, why does that progress often feel so small? Why do years of effort still leave so many people feeling as though they're not much further ahead? At first, Sarah assumed the answer was financial. Maybe the progress wasn't significant enough. Maybe people simply needed bigger results. More income, more investments, more success. But the more she thought about it, the less convincing that explanation became. Because she kept seeing the same pattern. People would achieve something they once deeply wanted. A promotion, a home, a growing investment account, a successful business. For a brief moment, it felt meaningful. Then life continued. The achievement became familiar. Attention shifted to the next goal. That was the pattern. Not because progress disappeared, because progress became normal. Sarah began realizing something most people never notice. Human beings are surprisingly poor at feeling gradual change. We notice disruption, we notice surprises, we notice dramatic shifts, but steady improvement often escapes our attention, especially when we're living inside it. That was the insight. People don't overlook progress because they're negative. They overlook it because they're experiencing it in real time. Day by day, month by month, year by year, the change is happening, but it happens slowly enough to feel invisible. Sarah thought about children growing up. Parents see them every day. Growth is difficult to notice. Then someone visits after several years, and the difference is obvious. The growth was always there, the perspective wasn't. Financial progress often works the same way. People focus on what remains missing, not what has already changed, and over time that habit creates a powerful illusion. The illusion of standing still, even while moving forward. That realization changed the way Sarah viewed her own journey. For years, she measured progress through milestones. The next number, the next achievement, the next goal. Now she was beginning to see something different. Progress is often easier to recognize in hindsight than in the moment. Because the future receives most of our attention, the past receives very little, and because of that, many people unintentionally erase evidence of their own growth. Not financially. Psychologically, they adapt, they normalize, they move forward, then wonder why they don't feel further ahead. That was why freedom often feels distant, not because progress is missing, because progress is underestimated. And the more it is underestimated, the more freedom appears to remain somewhere in the future, always ahead, never here. Sarah realized this wasn't really a money problem. It was a perception problem. People were trying to feel progress through extraordinary moments, when most progress arrives through ordinary ones. Small improvements, repeated habits, consistent actions. The kinds of changes that rarely feel life-changing while they're happening, yet often become life-changing over time. And perhaps that was the greatest irony of all. The most important progress in life usually feels the least dramatic, until enough time passes for the pattern to reveal itself. For the first time, Sarah understood something deeply important. Progress doesn't become valuable when you finally notice it. It was valuable all along, you simply couldn't see it yet. The realization stayed with Sarah, because something still didn't make sense. If people underestimate their progress, what exactly are they using to measure it? For years, Sarah never questioned the answer. Income, savings, investments, net worth. The numbers most people associate with success. At first, that seemed reasonable. Numbers matter, money matters, ownership matters. But the more Sarah thought about it, the more she noticed a problem. Those numbers were measuring accumulation, not freedom. And those are not always the same thing. That realization changed everything. Because a person can accumulate more while simultaneously depending on more. More income, more obligations, more commitments, more complexity. From the outside, progress appears obvious. Yet internally, freedom may feel unchanged. That was the hidden disconnect. People were measuring one thing while hoping to experience another. They measured accumulation. But they wanted freedom. Sarah began seeing examples everywhere. Someone doubles their income, but their lifestyle expands too. Someone grows their net worth, but also grows their obligations. Someone earns more than ever before, yet still feels unable to slow down, unable to take risks, unable to step away. The numbers improved. The feeling didn't. That was the metric problem. Because freedom is not only about what you gain, it's also about what you depend on. That distinction is easy to miss, yet it changes everything. For years, Sarah believed freedom would naturally appear as accumulation increased. Now she wasn't so sure. Perhaps accumulation and freedom sometimes travel together, but they are not identical. A person can own more and still feel trapped. A person can earn more and still feel fragile, because dependence often hides behind success. That was the insight. The real question was no longer, how much do I have? The real question became, how much control over time, control over choices, control over direction, control over the ability to say no. That was the measurement Sarah had been missing, because financial freedom is not experienced as a number. It is experienced as flexibility, the ability to make decisions without constant pressure, the ability to absorb uncertainty without panic, the ability to choose rather than react. And suddenly Sarah understood why freedom felt further away than ever, not because people were failing, not because progress was absent, because many were measuring the wrong thing. They were tracking accumulation while searching for autonomy, tracking numbers while searching for control, tracking growth while searching for freedom. And those are not always the same journey. That realization stayed with Sarah, because for the first time, she could see why so many successful people still felt restless. They had improved their financial position, but they had never clearly defined freedom itself. And without a clear definition, the feeling remained just out of reach, always attached to the next milestone, always waiting for the next number. But perhaps freedom was never hiding behind the next number. Perhaps it was hiding behind a different metric entirely. The realization stayed with Sarah, because after everything she had discovered, one question remained. If freedom isn't measured by money, what is it measured by? For years, the answer seemed obvious. More income, more assets, more savings, more investments. The larger the numbers became, the closer freedom should feel. At least that was the assumption. But reality kept telling a different story. Sarah had seen people with impressive incomes who felt trapped, successful people who felt exhausted, people with substantial assets who still felt unable to slow down, unable to step away, unable to choose differently. The numbers suggested freedom. The experience often didn't. That contradiction forced Sarah to reconsider everything, because perhaps freedom was never about how much someone had. Perhaps it was about how much they depended on. That was the insight. And once she saw it, everything changed. For years, Sarah had been asking, how much more do I need? Now she was asking, what controls me? The difference was profound, because freedom is not simply the ability to acquire more. It is the ability to require less permission from circumstances, less permission from bills, less permission from obligations, less permission from fear. That was the hidden shift. Freedom expanded as dependence decreased, and those are not always the same process. A person can earn more, yet become more dependent. A person can own more, yet feel less free, because every dependency influences choice. That was why freedom felt so difficult to define. It wasn't visible, it was experienced, through flexibility, through options, through the ability to make decisions without constant pressure. Sarah suddenly understood why wealth and freedom are often confused. Wealth can create freedom, but wealth itself is not freedom. Freedom is what wealth makes possible: the ability to choose, the ability to adapt, the ability to direct your future. That was the metric she had been searching for all along. Not accumulation, autonomy, not a number, control, not ownership alone, choice. And for the first time, Sarah understood why freedom often feels so far away. Many people are trying to accumulate their way toward a feeling without ever defining the feeling itself. They chase larger numbers, larger milestones, larger goals, believing freedom exists on the other side. But freedom was never hiding behind the next number. It was hiding behind a different question. How much of your life can you direct? That realization changed everything. Because once Sarah redefined freedom, the entire journey looked different. Progress looked different. Success looked different. Even wealth looked different. She no longer saw freedom as a destination. She saw it as an increasing ability to choose, an increasing ability to respond rather than react, an increasing ability to shape life instead of being shaped by it. And perhaps that was the most important lesson of all. Financial freedom is not the moment life becomes perfect. It is the moment your future becomes less dependent on forces you cannot control. And once Sarah understood that, freedom no longer felt like a distant destination. It felt like a direction available long before the final number is reached. For years, Sarah believed freedom was a number, a goal, a milestone, something waiting somewhere in the future. Eventually, she discovered something different. People rarely want a bigger number. They want a bigger life. More choice, more control, more flexibility. That was the hidden truth. Money matters. But freedom is not experienced as a number. It is experienced as the ability to choose. Sarah finally understood that freedom was never hiding behind the next milestone. It was growing every time dependence decreased. Every time options increased, every time control expanded. That was the lesson. Stop asking, how much more do I need? Start asking, how much of my life can I direct? Because freedom is not a destination, it is a direction. If Sarah's journey changed the way you think about freedom, wealth, and success, consider subscribing to Hidden Wealth Systems, because the goal was never a bigger number. The goal was always a bigger ability to choose.